with video vibrancy. This will
We are now live, sir. Thank you, Parthosh. So, good morning, Joint Secretary Sir, Sri Ganeshwarji, and our eminent panelist, and also just like thanks to Mr. Corporate Affairs to giving time for the ASSOCHAM and ASSOCHAM members to just like discuss of new CSR Amendment Rule 2021. So, we have our just like session moderator, Mr. Pravinkar. So today this session will be moderated by Mr. Pravinkar. So Mr. Pravinkar is a head group corporate communication and CSR from Minda Corporation Limited. So hand over to Mr. Pravinkar and please carry forward this session. Mr. Pravinkar.
Thank you very much, Sandeep ji. Just to quickly check, am I audible?
Yeah, you are audible and visible. Yeah.
All right. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Namaste. You have joined from the different parts of the world. Today, we are having a very significant and much needed discussion on corporate social responsibility, where a code is placed and we are decoding it. I'm very thankful to the Ministry of Corporate Affairs, particularly Sri Csr Singh ji, for joining us today as a chief guest. I'm thankful to ASSOCHAM for organizing this much needed discussion, where I have got my eminent panelists who are representing corporates, corporate foundations, NGOs, consultancies, and importantly, the government. So the new rule was introduced on 22nd of January 2021, which has its applicability from 2020-21. There will be implications of the rule over the industries, agencies, and projects. It's mandated now. Ladies and gentlemen, it's mandated. Earlier, we have just the recruiting. A lot of things that we'll be discussing for the day. We will have to look at the Act and its implication, and we'll be placing the questions and the queries that we have to the Ministry. You must have seen the Act in place, which talks about the e-form, that is CSR1. We are all waiting for that for 1st of April to come. International organizations are going to enter. They will have the role to play. The 3-year implication for exceeding the budget. And also, if you have not spent, even an escrow account, you know about it. Officers will be held defaulters. The CFOs have responsibilities other than the CSR officers. It's going to be a matter of responsibility and accountability. It has to be done in a very organized way. And that is why the impact assessment has also been placed with all the annual action plan, which is going to be placed with this act by the companies. Assets would be transferred to the foundations or the not-for-profit implementing agency, and of course, the website disclosure. So we have an important thing. Before I start with today's session, I would like to request Mr. Anil Rajput for the welcome address. Mr. Anil Rajput ji is the chairperson of ASSOCHAM CSR Council, the senior vice president corporate affairs of ITC Limited. Anil ji, over to you.
Thank you, Praveen. It's my proud privilege to welcome Shri Ganeshwar Singh ji, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Government of India, distinguished heads of CSR from corporate world, valued guests and friends. Good morning to all of you. We are today meeting to discuss one of the most important subjects, Decoding CSR Rule Amendment 2021. Implications on corporates, implementing agencies and projects. Before I come to that, I would like to share with Kanishwar Kumarji the context in which we are all meeting. The world is finally getting a grip around the COVID pandemic with the vaccination in full swing. Normalcy is being restored, albeit at a slow pace. In all this, the government is showing its hands-on approach by leading in various spheres of social and economic initiatives. The company's Corporate Social Responsibility Policy Amendment Rules 2021 came into effect on 22nd January this year. Through it, various changes have been introduced. Earlier, the inclusive definition of CSR was given in the Act. Now, the inclusive definition has been amended as exclusive definition, which clearly specifies the activities which are not considered as CSR. These include activities in the company's normal course of business. This, however, has a few exceptions. Activity undertaken outside the country, again with an exception, political contributions, activities benefiting the company's employees, benefit to its product along with activities carried out for the fulfillment of any other statutory obligations under any law in force in India. In addition, all projects undertaken after 1st of April 2021 can only be through implementing agencies that are registered with the central government. The CSR committee is now required to formulate and recommend a detailed action plan covering the entire CSR policies and projects to be undertaken by the company. It is now the responsibility of the board to ensure that administrative overheads in relation to CSR do not exceed 5% of the total CSR expenditure of the company. The rules now require that any company with CSR obligation of rupees 10 crore or more for the 3 preceding financial years would require to hire an independent agency to conduct an impact assessment of all the projects with outlay of rupees 1 crore or more. And the CSR activities of various companies will now be displayed on website. While the amendments have been enhanced clarity on multiple points and introduced some uniformity by laying down on the procedures that need to be followed. There are, however, some concerns that I will raise during my comments, and I'm sure all my colleagues who are here, they will add on to some of the concerns that they may also have. In the recent amendments of CSR rules, there is no mention of corpus contribution. There needs to be clarity on whether contribution to corpus of the trust, society, Section 8 companies is still allowed as eligible CSR expenditure. In addition, a company may engage international organizations for designing, monitoring, and evaluation of CSR projects or programs as per its CSR policy, as well as for capacity building of their own personnel for CSR. Generally, such engagements are multi-year arrangements. In such context, will it be considered as an ongoing project as per Rule 2.1? Under Rule 4.1a and under Rule 4.1d regarding implementing agency criteria, There needs to be some clarity whether such mandatory requirements of 12A and 80G is applicable with immediate effect or with effect from 1st April 2021. With regards to the mandatory impact assessment rule 8.3 A, B, and C, in the context of large companies, considering the number of projects with individual value of greater than 1 crore will be quite high, and the stated total limit of 50 lakh is not reasonable. Therefore, there is a suggestion that while mandatory clause may remain, but the cap on such expenditure could be considered to be withdrawn. When we talk about ineligible CSR, we need to be mindful that companies carry out awareness programs pertaining to sanitation, health, education, and much more in the vicinity of its catchment area where it operates. The employees of their families may reside in such catchments as well and would be part of overall local population. It needs to be clearly specified whether awareness program conducted in such catchment areas be considered as an activity benefiting employees. There are also concerns that 5% cap on administrative overheads, and abiding on this could be a huge challenge for many companies. Large number of companies conduct CSR expenditure through implementing agencies. The new amendment restricts companies from authorizing either a Section 8 company or a registered public charitable trust to conduct CSR projects on their behalf. As we are all well aware that a Section 8 company is a company registered with the purpose of promoting charitable causes, applies profits for promoting its objectives, and is prohibited from distributing dividends to shareholders. Such entities now have to be registered with the government by April 1st this year. And this could seriously impact the CSR programs of large number of Indian companies that conduct projects through private trusts. I'm certain that government has only our best interest at heart. We are hopeful that some of our concerns would be looked into and a win-win situation in arriving at the solution to this concern. I look forward to the views, opinion, and assessment of this matter from the government side, which today is represented by Shri Ganeshwar Kumar. I look forward to an engaging and riveting session and wish this webinar my very best. Thank you and Jai Hind.
Thank you very much, Mr. Anil Rajput, for the welcome address. And I'm sure we all are taking note of the points that you have mentioned about the purpose of the Trust International Organization, implementing agency, awareness programs, and the cap of the administrative expenditure over CSR. So I'm sure we'll also be placing more questions to the ministry. But before I go to the questions and answers round, I would like to take quick views of all my panelists. Just in 1 minute, we all will be restricting to our timeline. How is your reaction with this amendment? How did you find this new set of rules which was introduced on 22nd of January? So I would allot just 1 minute each. So I now would like to go and take reaction of Mr. Balaji Ganpati, who is the Global Head of CSR, Tata Consultancy Service. Can I have your view on the amendments? Just in 1 minute.
Thank you, Praveen. Thank you, Mr. Anil Rajput, Sandeep, and all my fellow panelists. And thanks to Mr. Ganesh Kumar Singh and Government of India for participating in this discussion. I think I would summarize my views in three phrases: direction, discipline, and data. That were my takeaways. That were our takeaways when we went through the amendment rules. First of all, direction. There is more clarity and more boundaries defined in this amendments than before, and it also gives us certainty in terms of what the board and the committee should get involved in. And I think that gives a lot more of clarity as well as weightage in terms of the company's direction on what we are doing for the community. The second is discipline. I think the impact assessments framework, the registrations that need to be done, the regulations around implementing agencies and whom to partner with. All of this is, I think, a way for us to get more disciplined in how we do our work. And then the third is data. So gathering data and making sure that what we are doing is benefiting the community and the actual outcomes are getting created, the money is being spent in the right way. So for us, we certainly see a lot of positives. Certainly, there are questions, as Mr. Rajput has raised, but we are thankful for the government to provide more clarity on these areas through these amendments. So direction, discipline, and data are our takeaways.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Balaji. That's a beautiful way to present 3D approach. It's just not that 3D for abbreviations, but it's a 3D way to bring in this act. I now would like to go to Mr. Gunjan Patel, who is the head of CSR Asia Pacific, Japan, and India, SAP. So, Mr. Gunjan, how do you look at this amendments?
Yeah, thanks. Thanks, eminent panelist, Mr. Gyaneshwar Singh and Mr. Rajput, for sharing your concern and way forward. I would put them into, again, three buckets. One is plan and execution. So companies will have to be well prepared with the plan and execution strategy. Second would be governance or impact. So impact can be measured with a good governance framework in place. CSR will have to have a good governance mechanism in place. Third would be transparency and dissemination. So transparency will be called into action, wherein the programs are not just driven by one or two individuals. There would be a democratic structure to the program. So I would say that that would be ensured through transparency and dissemination of data. So that means all the disclosures through impact measurement reviews, monitoring, and evaluation. Fortunately for SAP, we have been following these practices since last 3 odd years. We have put into place a proper monitoring and impact assessment structure. In fact, we have been carrying out social return on investment on our programs. So for us, we have to reinforce that the good governance principles that we have been following are in place. We would continue to look into any such changes that would emerge in the future can be adhered by our CSR programs, and we are well governed by our CSR committee. The committee comprises people from business, legal, compliance, finance, as well as people who are responsible for government affairs, and bring to us such information from time to time. So uh, it's a message from for all our peers and people in this ecosystem that one has to abide by some of these norms, and finally this would benefit to the community and would create inclusive and equitable growth opportunities and development for all.
Wonderful. Thank you very much, Mr. Gunjan Patel. Bigger responsibility, better governance, and the best result. Thank you. Ms. Swati Sahai, Head Corporate Affairs and Policy Advocacy, India and North Europe, HCL Technologies, India. Swati, how do you look at it? What does your lens say? Will there be some differences with the previous act which was in place and the new amendments? How do you summarize this in next 1 minute?
Thank you very much, Praveen, for this opportunity. ASSOCHAM, Anil ji, and of course, we have JS from the Government of India on this panel. So I would like to mention very quickly, precisely, not taking much of the time. I see this particular set of amendments as a natural progression of what have been before since 2013 onwards. We've seen a couple of amendments before. I think this is the fifth one. It's a natural progression towards compliance. So in my views, it's a positive step, which actually defines a lot of criterion for the CSR functionalities in India. How the CSR in the new defined paradigm should be governed in all the positive senses. I'm thankful to the Government of India that they have taken a lot of concerns into their account while releasing this 2021 edition of the CSR rules. I see for me, it's a macro level approach that they have defined for the CSR, wherein, the board is actually at the top level. So the focus is how the board is governing the CSR activities. If I talk about corporate, because I come from that side, there's number two, there's a criterion for the projects and the program rollout. So that's the second emphasis which I see here. And the third one, which I see, the action plan, which is also very critical aspect. So the whole part is the government wants us to focus on the implementation side, delivery side, and dissemination of the information in the most transparent ways. However, I would also like to agree to Anil ji as to what he has stated before of a few of the concerns from the corporate side. Yes, we need a few more clarities from the government on certain clauses, and I have my own points, but if I would have time, I would like to elaborate on those points. For example, the ongoing projects. So we need more clarity on ongoing project side. There's a concern as to how do you go about uploading the information on a particular project or your company's website, which is a massive project. For example, I'm just taking 10 more seconds, Praveen. If there's a modernization of village, right? That's the whole criteria, the theme of a program, which is cut into different pieces. So this is one thing cut into different pieces. How do we go about it? Should we be uploading a lot of information? And I mean, I feel it'll be a little cluttered up that way. So I think, couple of things around unspent CSR also that we have our concerns, and we need more clarity. But overall, I think it's a positive, very positive, set of rules.
Thank you very much, Swati. I'm sure MCA is taking note of it, and yes, all these ambiguities will definitely be clarified by decoding these CSR rules for the day. And you talked about the natural progression with this amendment, so we just will have to look at whether this progression, we all look at it as a harmonic progression or a geometric progression. So with that, now I move to Mr. Santosh Jayaraman, with the partner and head climate change, sustainability and CSR advisory, KPMG. What's the lens of KPMG?
So good morning, fellow panelists. Things I think the back to go. Yeah. There's a around CSR. I think some board and is very and back this is definitely the CSR definition, which has changed. It has got its own pluses and minuses. Just like that would be there, and a little more clarity, as mentioned here in the questions, need to come there. Shift from directional to mandatory. Earlier, it was a thing like if you don't spend, explain the reasons, but now with the ESCO kind of a ongoing projects, it becomes clearly mandatory. The registration requirement for implementation, and I have put a question in the chat box saying that is going to be annual, is going to time. I think there is a linkage to ATG and 12A over there. And so what happens if a partner gets registered late? 12 will be kind of, for some reason, it's taken away. So I think there need to be clarity from there. And of course, the increased rigor on the internal control is what I said, is very clearly brought and focus on impact. So I think these are the 5 things we see. Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Santosh ji. All right, we although lost you in between somewhere, but I could get the points that you have mentioned, and your views are positive. It's a mixed view that you have given about these amendments. With that, I move to Mr. Ashwini Saxena, who is the Chief Executive Officer of JSW Foundation. What's your view, sir?
Thank you, everyone, and it's so heartening to see Mr. Singh here, because I've seen Mr. Singh always being so proactive, reaching out at all CSR summits and giving his input. So thank you so much, sir, for being here. It's always wonderful to have such a eminent and proactive person, policymaker with us. I think the key shift that has happened in this time with the CSR regime is that while earlier it was about compliance and or explaining it, it has now moved from either you comply or you transfer, which has become increasingly kind of a shift that I can see in the paradigm. One very good thing that has happened is that a lot of ambiguity which was around administrative overheads and such kind of operational challenges, which I'm sure nations and companies were facing, that has been taken care of. I think that's a very welcome sign, and I very rightly put by Mr. Rajput and Mr. Balaji also that a lot of data-driven approach is now being visible very clearly there, and there's a significant emphasis on impact. But I would be happy to know from you that when we are talking about a whole list of implementing agencies, which also include a lot of, I would say, charitable trusts or societies established by various central governments, state governments, etc. To what extent does it, align with the principles originally laid down in the CSR Act, where it said that government would have very little role to play in terms of CSR implementation and monitoring, and more so because now we are talking about impact measurements, and we are also talking about independent review assessments, individual reports. So how this would pan up, how this is going to unfold when you have a whole range of, I would say, government held entities also, regardless of whether they are registered as a charitable trust or as a society. But so the challenge between government as a regulator and government as an implementing partner, I think that dilemma is something which we would like to have a little more clarity. But yes, a lot of interesting things have happened. The formats that have come up, I would say it's such a very good direction. That CSR is becoming a more mainstream and a very important constituent of company affairs. So I think compliments to you and the ministry for that. Thank you so much. I'll stop here.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you very much 2 more views I'll be taking from 3 more views rather. Mr. Nixon Joseph from SBI Foundation. He is the president and COO. Mr. Nixon, 1 minute for you.
And Janeshwar Singh. I feel this, after seeing these amendments, I felt that the government is quite serious about what is happening in the CSR sector. And also they will bring more transparency to CSR activities. As far as SBI Foundation is concerned, since are already, like, I found most of stipulations mentioned are already being followed by us. I didn't find it burdensome or something quite challenging. How I would like to raise is, one is like we tell about projects or funds to be used within 3 years. Project to be limited only to 3 years. Since the rural development projects are will extend to 4-5 years. Is corporate companies formed the to implement CSR activities, whether the concept regarding projects and transferring funds is applicable to such foundations also. We have restricted the impact assessment to 50 lakhs, whether that is for one project or for all the projects. Concern is about the annual action plan, whether there is any time limit for it, that it should be introduced in April or May, or it can be any time during the year. These are some point, and otherwise I feel this is a natural progression towards bringing CSR in the mainstream. And thanking the ministry for bringing clarifications on various issues. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Nixon Joseph. We have taken note of the questions that you have placed. I'll be going back to the ministry, and Gyaneshwar ji would be addressing to your queries. But before that, I would like to have 2 more views. Mr. Gopal Agrawal, Chief Internal Business Officer and Head of CSR WNS Global Services. Your views, please, Mr. Gopal.
Thank you, Praveen, and thank you, everyone. Good morning, Mr. Gyaneshwar Singh, and good morning to the panelists. So my general reaction, a great move. All the provisions that has been brought under the definition side bring a lot of clarity. I'm very, very impressed with 2 specific provisions that has been brought around carryover and setup of funds that gives a real possibility of matching the cash flow need to the accounting requirement. Great of capital assets. That was something significantly needed. We were able to create capital. Now there is a very, very clear provision that is a great step. While certainly all the rules are very, very progressive, I still believe, and this point is more for the ministry to take a note, that all these regulations are more from the funding side of the entire CSR ecosystem. I strongly believe there is a possibility to also, create some regulations on the pooling side of the money, which is the demand side of the CSR money. And I still believe that is completely open, and where this money is going, and is this money really chasing the first priority, or is it still chasing only around metro, is one of the biggest concern, I believe, because, and then there are certain regulations also which currently are promoting that, which I think can be diluted and rather be promoted more in terms of how that money is being deployed. And if given an opportunity sometime later, certainly I can speak in little bit more detail. Now specific to 1 or 2 changes I just want to highlight. I strongly believe that for delivery of any CSR activity, you also need to be strong in the domain of the subject. And hence now, since there is a new provision to enroll this delivering partners as CSR1 electronic form, is there a way we can create that registration into a particular domain? So when we see Schedule 7, right? So there are certain domains, like say, for that matter, healthcare or education or environment, right? can this registration be in a particular domain, or are we really registering them for everything and anything, correct? Because I strongly believe there has to be a differentiation. So is there that a possibility, correct? Similarly, the impact assessment, I don't know if that has been made applicable to the delivering partners, because I think the impact assessment currently is on the corporate, who is a funding partner. Can it also be made applicable to the implementing partner? Let's say if they are pulling money and their spend is more than a crore. I think those are some of the changes that I think might be detailed up further. And with that, I am very, very impressed and very thankful to the government of India for bringing these changes. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Two very, very important angles, and he talks about the thematic domain and dedication, and yes, whether this impact assessment and the rules, will they be applying to the implementing Section 8 company and maybe to the trust or to the NGOs or not. So this query is always there, and people are asking these questions. Last view from Mr. Matthew Joseph, who is the country director, American Indian Foundation. Let's look at the not-for-profit angle on this, and then we'll go back to Sri Ganeshwarji.
So thank you, Praveen. And at the outset, let me give my thanks to the Government of India for coming out with such clear rules that will for sure improve the quality of functioning of NGOs in the country. First of all, programs now, I believe, would have the freedom to go beyond 1 year of functioning. So until now, it's all a year-to-year programming, which is very difficult to lead to results. If a program is for a period of 2 to 3 years, there is bound to be impact. The second good thing I see about these rules is that it encourages evaluation of programs. Organizations like us have been evaluating programs continuously with baselines and endlines, but it has not been the culture in the CSR sector as such. So perhaps this will ensure, as my predecessor who was talking on the call mentioned, this would actually encourage NGOs also to hold themselves to a very high quality. This might be difficult for smaller NGOs who do not have resources in terms of administration and oversight, but definitely for any well-run organization, these rules come in very handy. I need clarity on one thing, whether these rules apply to sub-grantees or not. Many of us NGOs directly implement programs as well as work through partners. So how these apply to those sub-grantees is something that doesn't have clarity as yet. So from my side, these rules were great, and thank you so much for bringing these clarities into the sector.
Wow, wonderful. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your mixed views, queries, questions. And we all know that in the year 2013, the Act was introduced and that was implemented from 2014 onwards with a hypothesis of a responsibility, a sense of responsibility, which many of the corporates have taken up with a very high speed. However, there were some organizations who could not identify the way to undertake it. And there are many organizations who were defaulters also for them. But today the narrative is that there are amendments, and the narrative is that it's mandated and it has to be done with the spirit of the Act. So with that, now, ladies and gentlemen, before we open the floor for the questions and answers, I would like to request for the address of Sri Gyaneshwar Kumar Singh, who is the Joint Secretary, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Government of India, for his address. Let me take his address first, what's his views, and then we will open the floor in last 20-25 minutes. So, Sri Gyaneshwarji, over to you.
Thank you so much. I think we have to please unmute your mics. Please unmute your mics. Now we have it better. Thank you so much, Mr. Praveen Khan, for giving me this opportunity. I'm especially thankful to Mr. Anil Rajput, Chairman, ASSOCHAM, CSR Council. We have worked together also. We have gone to Parliament also. So some of the things what today I'm going to discuss, he can better appreciate. We have lots of business leaders, CSR head, Mr. Balaji Ganpati, Mr. Gunjan Patel, Ms. Swati Sahai, Mr. Santosh Jairam, Mr. Aswini Saxena, Mr. Nixon Joseph, Mr. Gopal Agrawal, Mr. Matthew Joseph, then Dr. Lavnees Channa, and Mr. Ravi Bhatnagar. So today I'm extremely happy to be with you because there are two reasons why we should have this kind of a dialogue, because now we are entering into a new framework of the governance where your feedback is very important. And I will give you the perspective, then you will appreciate what amendment we have introduced in the law, in the CSR rules and why it was done. If you understand why, then you can better appreciate it. There are two things. When we started CSR, we were the first country in 2014. We started this journey. And in this journey, as most of you are saying, this was directional, comply and explain. So first point of view is that this is the misconception. Whenever anything is a part of law book, it is not a directional because law has to be enforced. And what has happened from 2014 to 2017 and 18, we have the system where we are accountable to the parliamentary committee. And we have the system and procedures whenever Parliament in session, there are a start question, parliamentary committees to go into details of the review of the implementation of the acts. And there, at least 3 parliamentary committees, they were very harsh on us. They said, there is no confusion. This is a part of a law. It has to be enforced. And what we started doing, there was some confusion. You are absolutely right. If you ask any chartered accountant, company secretary, some of them has also came up with a guidance note that once you explain, your liability is over. But why this explanation was given at the time? Explanation was given when you start something new, ecosystem was not ready. You were not some way exposed how to frame CSR projects, how to find out implementation. So explanation was that if you have not been able to do it, you know why you have not been able to do it. There is, if you go through our FAQ, the board was empowered to transfer that amount to the next year. And we are very thankful to many of the companies. They have spent, when we started asking them the letters that why you have not done it, they have done it and they have given commitment. Many of them, they have come back to us asking time. So that phase is over. So what we have started in a common parlance, most of the speakers have said directional. For us, it was never a directional. And why I'm saying it was never a directional, when we got a clear-cut mandate direction from the parliamentary committee, we have to show how this CSR system is being implemented and in what way it is being implemented. If company is not spending their prescribed amount, there are enough provisions in the Companies Act. One is 135(4)(a). There are other provisions. We started going for a prosecution. And this is the background. More than 360 cases were filed in the Metropolitan Magistrate Courts. Out of that, corporates, they have come up more than 120 cases. They have applied for compounding. Compounding is, you are saying, okay, this is my liability, so explanation will not work. You are saying, I will do it, give me the time. So that is a compounding process. Then what we did it, since we were at the loggerheads with you, because you were saying it's an explanation, and the parliamentary committee is saying you show your willpower. As a government, you have to show, you have to monitor the implementation, and you have to first our journey is to ensure that amount has been spent. Then we'll come to the quality of amount. Then what happened in 2019, the amendment, Companies Act amendment, 2019, it was in July, they put 134(8) and 135 where the prosecution was given. Some way, and rightly so, because now we have the benefit of hindsight and we have learned a lot. All of you were not happy with that, and we realized that this way we can't work, because some way we are compromising on the basic philosophy of partnership. So if we start doing that, if we start going, we need a very big departments. And we started that time under the parliamentary direction for parliamentary committee, a prosecution cell, 30-40 people. We started giving you notice in 2018. As for your prescribed amount, 5,000 notices were given. So then we realized that we need to work on it. And parallelly, there was a high-level committee which was set up in 2018. So high-level committee has representation from the business. Tata Group chairman was represented in that committee. FICCI at the time, FICCI representation was there. The business leaders were there. Implementing organizations were there. And all of us, we realized that we have to come with a new framework which should be sustainable. And this framework should work. What is the philosophy of the government? Minimum governance, maximum governance. So we have to work in a framework where the government should be the last one to ask you what you are doing. And the basic philosophy of CSR, it starts from your corporate governance. So this was the framework. And then what we did in 2020 amendment, we decriminalized lots of provision, including the CSR provisions also. So now this, you will appreciate this amendment in the light of what was happening, what was the directions of parliamentary committee, 2019 amendment, 2020 amendment, where we decriminalized, and high-level committee, which was a totally a fresh inputs they have given to relook the whole CSR implementation and the provisions in a new way. So this amendment act, this our amendment to the rules has to be read. Now, if we are very clear about philosophy of CSR, there were questions. Philosophy of CSR, intent of CSR, half of our problem will be over. Every day, I get lots of questions from the CSR head. Some of them we have worked together. They know we are available. They call us and they ask small technical points how they are going to implement. And then I realized that somewhere the time has come, unless we appreciate the background. You are the best judge. You are handling the cases day and night. So I have to learn from you. But here, how we handle it, we are very clear about the principles. The principles are that when the government has started withdrawing from many of the delivery of public goods, a sense was there that we need to engage the private sector in delivery of public goods, and that is through partnership. And how we are going to deliver it? The framework was why it was chosen. CSR amount is not so much. Any state government, even the education department budget will be more than we are. Annual is expend of CSR maybe 14 to 15,000. But why it is getting so much of attraction? Everyone is talking about the CSR. You will appreciate. As a joint secretary, every day I get 5 to 10 calls from very important people in the government. They will say, why not you relax it, give role for MPs? Why not you give role for this scheme, that scheme? So outside, it has attracted so much of attention, not due to the spend, because it has a multiplier impact. And what we look at from the government side, CSR experiment in a different framework. We wanted to leverage your technology. We wanted to leverage your efficiency. So it was more like a social experimentation. So we were thinking, once you are experimenting with new ideas where government doesn't have a liberty, you have a liberty, and good projects can be scaled up. So this was something what we talk about R&D, what we talk about innovation. So we were thinking the transformation of the country is incomplete without transformation of rural India. And that can be possible where we are not able to reach. You are there and you are innovating all the time. This was the philosophy. What has happened? This philosophy has to be read into the international perspective. Now the international perspective is, if you read any of the webinars done by the any of the best university of the Western world, you will talk about, you will listen that revisiting capitalism. Now there is a realization has come to the world, the business leaders themselves in Washington in 2019, 200 top business leaders, they assemble every year. And they were saying up to 2019, what they were saying that social responsibility of business is to make profit. In 2019, they said we were wrong. Business has to be inclusive, business has to be sustainable, and business has to be for stakeholders. And same thing is there in Davos. And what has happened after COVID, all of us we realize that business works in an environment where society is an important part. So interconnection between the business and society, COVID has given us lots of learning, and throughout the world, business leaders were in the forefront to mitigate the challenge of the COVID-19. And India also, I'm very happy to know that the FICCI, ASSOCHAM, CIA, all of you were in the forefront in trying to support the population, trying to work with the government, and that's why we have been able to minimize this damage, and we have been able to do lots of things. So throughout the world, now a stakeholder is the key. And so CSR, you have to read CSR with 166. 166 of the Companies Act, it talks about stakeholders, role of fiduciary duty of the directors. And what it talks about, you will find shareholder comes after 2, 3. It talks about community, it talks about environment, it talks about everything. So we have to put it in a perspective. Then there is another debate. Many of the members discuss about SDG. Many of the members talk about responsible business conduct. Now CSR is a subset. What is happening throughout the world, there is a shift. There is a shift is, we call it in the common parlance, business and human rights. So human rights is nothing, responsible business conduct, stakeholders involvement. Now, if you want to export your goods, if you want to access to capital, these are the new framework. Same thing is there in ESG in a different way. What we talk about in ESG, environment, social, and the governance framework. SDG, more or less. So these are all connected things. So through CSR, we are trying to give the message to the world that our business, we have a legacy, long time. Gandhiji started trusteeship concept. Many of our business houses, they were doing CSR much before 2014, and they were spending more than 2%. So we have a tradition, and we are saying we do business, we make profit, but we care about the community. This is our USP. And tomorrow with this USP, I have no doubt when we talk about 5 trillion economy or 10 trillion economy, we will have a global footprint. And wherever we go, the community will be, local community will be waiting for us, because they will think there is a difference in business approach. Whenever the Indian companies are going out, or the multinational companies are working in India, they are all invited. So this is all the framework we have to keep in mind. Then our job will be simple. Now, when we started in 2014, that time, many things were implicit. Implicit, the board will decide. We always, whenever we have tremendous pressure from different stakeholders to prescribe something, we say, no, we can't compromise on basic architecture of CSR. This is a part of the board. Our job is to give some kind of a framework. But we realize in this journey of CSR from 14 to, you can say 18 or 19, some way it's a mixed reaction. Many good companies, they have been able to do lots of good things. We have a CSR award where we found that innovative projects, nobody can think on those lines. They have experimented in society, innovative way. They have tried to experiment under the CSR framework. As many of you have said that you were doing without us telling you impact assessment. I was going through a report, KPMG, a representative is there. They have done some study of top 100 companies, more than 50% companies, they were doing the impact assessment on their own. So what we try to do here, that we try to give a framework, picking up the best, whatever was the best approach, best practices available in the market. So this is some kind of SOP in terms of our amended rules, what is already being done by the business leaders, and these are the best practices. Second, this process of amending the CSR rules was totally a partnership model, engagement with the stakeholders. You will be surprised to know how many comments we received. We received around 2,500 comments. And today I can see a smile on faces of most of you, because in the draft rules, we said only Section 8 will be allowed as an implementing agency. Most of you have given feedback. No, we have a legacy. Many trusts are 50 years old. Many trusts are 40 years old. Society. So we have respected your sentiment. We have allowed all three. But what we have done it in three frameworks, we can process all our amendments. We have tried to do ease of doing business. Like more than 60% of companies, their CSR spend prescribed amount is more less than 50 lakhs. So we have said no need of CSR committee. This was one of the feedback we can manage. Second, what we have tried to do, we have tried to make this ecosystem more transparent, more accountable. And we have tried to leverage technology, the information dissemination. And we have tried to do such thing in such a way where the government role will be minimum, only in exceptional cases when there is a fraud. We have enabling provision. Otherwise, I will be happy to note and I will be happy to even report to Parliament that government has hardly any role. That was the recommendation of HLC 2015, that corporate governance framework is good enough. Board of directors, independent directors, auditors, everyone is there. So same thing was reconfirmed in 2018 HLC, and same thing is here. We are saying you satisfy yourself. This is your money, how you are going to spend, and you have to actually do all kinds of due diligence. Now there was a lots of questions that why we have this 12A and ATG. These are all parts of transparency. Most of those who are working in these fields, they have this. We wanted not to do the police work. We wanted that if something is being done by the other government department, we should be happy, and these are the tested methods. Second thing is, this is the first year. There will be a challenges, but we will work on, we'll try to have this kind of a discussion, how to improve the practical challenges. We'll come with the FAQ, and I will appreciate if I have a request from Mr. Anil Rajput sir, if you can make 2-3 persons responsible, you can give me what are your practical difficulty. This is the amended rules. This is the difficulty, and this way it can be handled. You gave me problem as well as solution. So give me quickly. I will come up with the FAQ. But some of the question what you have raised. So these questions are, if you want to do something in your local areas, awareness allowed, even if your employees are there, because CSR talks about local area is a preferred, because there is no bar, you have to do it. There was a lots of question yesterday I was discussing with CII. They were saying how to go about the COVID. I said everything is possible under project mode. And even if your employees are benefiting, no problem. Go to local areas, big geographical areas, everything is possible. You will appreciate when COVID came, we wanted to also encourage our corporates to do more of a research, R&D, and so we relaxed also for 3 years, same lines of business. So we are proactive, and our framework is, now we are going into a different framework. Law is in work in progress. We are saying living document. You will find that Ministry of Corporate Affairs, there were 5 amendments in Solvency Bankruptcy Code within 4 years. You will find that Companies Act, so many amendments. So we are proactive. We are always listening to you. We have our mechanism. So whenever there is a problem, we'll try to sort it out. So this document also, the CSR amended rule is also a living document. If there are difficulties, we'll try to sort it out. But you have to appreciate that what is the framework. Framework is we want to give more push to ease of doing business, transparency, accountability, board of governance, so that tomorrow I can defend this framework in front of Parliament. Again, we have a meeting on 26. Mr. Rajput will also come there. That the parliamentary members are going into details. We are saying we have amended the rules. Government has no rules. Government has a minimum rule as a last resort. So we have to make that framework. There were some of the quick comments, impact assessment, 50 lakhs. It's a less amount. We are saying you were doing on your own. How your board will satisfy where you are putting your money. So some of your panelists have said social return. So we have incentivized. We will again revisit if there is a difficulty. Then there is a registration, whether it's a one time, every year it's a one time. This is just to find out who are your implementing agencies. This is not every year, because we are mindful of the fact we are not going to increase your compliance burden. Then there was a good question that what is the role of the government? This is a misconception. because if we just remove PM cares, we don't have data, because this was an extraordinary situation. COVID-19, this fund was set up. Otherwise, from 2014 to 2019, government funds in Schedule 7 has not received more than 5 to 6%. So the government, when we are saying some of the agencies of the government, why we are saying like disaster management. So you want to work with the disaster management authority, it may be act of a state, it may be a Section 8 company. So these are the enabling provisions where some states may have this kind of a system. So this is not the main, these are just to cover up. There was a good question how we are going to handle demand. So when we are talking about the impact assessment, unless we have the demand, unless we have the need assessment, impact assessment will not be there. But what we are trying to do as a government and Ministry of Corporate Affairs, we are going to come up very soon with Csr Exchange Portal. And this will be total voluntary. So Exchange Portal is a meeting place of the corporates, of implementing agencies and the experts. You will do the due diligence. And there, in next phase, we are going to also enable state government, district collector, any individual to upload their needs also. So it will go into different phases. It will be totally voluntary as on date. And there we can think of giving some kind of a domain expertise also. This is a good input. We are working on it. And I will request the volunteers, those who want to work with us, because we want to test with you. We have now the system is ready. We want to test with the corporates. We want to test with the implementing agencies. Then we'll go ahead. Second is there was a concern of uneven distribution. This is a real concern. Local areas is not mandatory. Local areas 2014 we said that it will be preference, because that time Mines and Minerals Amendment Act was not there. Now it has a huge money, more than 30,000 crore is there. This is growing fund. So business somehow is not, even if you are registered in a state, but your operations are throughout India. So unserved regions, you will be surprised to know Northeast is not getting more than 1 to 1.5%. So some of the states, if you add 4 or 5 states, it some way covers 60 to 70% of our CSR spend. So whatever we have talked about impact assessment, less money, because before that also you are spending more than 2%. I will encourage, this is the minimum, spend more. And second is that this is just information. What we did, the data crunching, the companies, those who have CSR liability less than 10%, most of them, they have overspent it. So I was surprised when we did the data crunching, the small community, they are doing much more because they are closer to society. They work in a very closer way to the society. So now time has come. We will encourage you, spend more. Don't think of 2%. This is the only way we can make our unique USP of the companies, those who are working, whether it's a multinational Indian companies in India, because unless we take care of stakeholders in interest, business will not be inclusive, it will not be sustainable. And in future, we are going to work. There was a suggestion. We are trying to align, that is a recommendation of a high-level committee, Schedule 7 with the SDG. That is a work in progress. So I need more volunteer. We have to learn from you because you are a practitioner and you will tell us what needs to be done. So awareness, you can do it. Impact, I have already clarified. Registration, it's one time. Government has really a little role, and we don't want to be prescriptive how you want to do it. The moment we start doing over regulation, it will some way compromise the basic architecture. We love to have the best practices from you after 1 year, how the different boards are applying their mind and how they are innovative, because this will now require a different kind of a skill set. Most of you will agree that 2014 we started, we have to some way spend it. Now what we have done it, we have now reached to a level where all of us are thinking seriously. We are serious about the impact of social return on this project. So we feel that government should not be very prescriptive. You have to lead us by doing best jobs, and wherever we feel that there are good examples, if there is a need, will come up. Then there is another question which was discussed, that how this ongoing project is going to be decided. This is all the board. We have said start date, close date. There was, that when we were deliberating as a government officer, we always think that we have to be over prescriptive. We thought that 15 years in the first year, 30 years in the second year. We said, no, nothing. Let the board take a call. So start date, close date. Most of you have agreed that 1 year is not good enough. So we have given 1 + 3. And since there was a confusion in comply and explain, so we have said that let's be a unexplained CSR that will be with you. So you will have flexibility to use it. But we have also what we have provided, that there was some suggestion that we have a good project and we want to overspend in the first year. We can take the benefit. That also provision we have provided. So key three concepts are there. Board has been made more responsible. Board has been made more accountable, more disclosure, more accountability of ecosystem, less role for the government. And future, if we have a chance, we'll try to see wherever government has role, we'll try to minimize it. And this is a unique experiment what we are doing as of now in this country, and whole world is watching us, and we will be able to lead a new pedagogy of the corporate governance, where the stakeholders are not only they are there mentioned in the act, they are actually working, and this is working. First window is through CSR. Thank you so much.
Wow, that's wonderful to hear. Shri Ganeshwar Kumar Singh, Joint Secretary, Ministry of Corporate Affairs, Government of India, and I'm sure we all have got the answers of the questions which have been placed so far. I could take it out and I could find that most of the questions we placed have been answered. We'll be opening the floor, although short a while, but before I open the floor, may I get views of Dr. Lavneesh Chana, Chairperson, ASSOCHAM IT, ITES, and E-Commerce Council and Vice President, Government Affairs, Asia Pacific and Japan, SAP. So, Mr. Lavneesh, in a couple of minutes, if you can put up your views for the deliberations which has happened so far, and then I'll also be inviting Ravi Bhatnagar for his views, and then we'll be opening the floor. Over to you, Dr. Lavneesh.
Okay, thank you so much for the opportunity, and it was really enlightening to listen to the views of the eminent panelists. And thank you, Ganeshwarji, for the excellent coverage and responses to the points. Now, if we look at whatever, if I could summarize whatever has been covered, so the broad direction that the amendments have from an output to outcome situation. The impact assessment being brought in. And second, from a program management to a program governance structure, the registration, empanelment, NGOs, panel, etc. So, in a sense, the 3 points that our panelists from TCS mentioned, we are coming to reality. The more important thing in terms of understanding, going forward with things that I would like to propose we go forward. Typically these amendments or these laws, if these could be brought, if these could be followed by a simple FAQ on a few of the doubts that we have heard during this conversation, that will be great. An example being, when I'm doing impact assessment, can my current auditor who is doing my social impact assessment as a part of the NGO audit, etc., can they be the impact assessment agency also? I mean, I'm just taking a hypothetical situation. Now, these kinds of questions, obviously, ASSOCHAM we can take the lead and put the questions and we can forward. That's one. Second, direction that I wanted to propose is all of us on this particular panel and others, we have been doing all these CSR initiatives as individual entities. I think now, and most of it are common in terms of the horizontal areas, whether it's skilling, inclusion, health, or whatnot. I think time has now come wherein probably joining hands with each other, and to some extent the efforts have already begun between companies taking initiatives and complementing each other's CSR in terms of partnerships. As Gunjan mentioned, we have partnered with Mahindra for their Nanikali and Gunjan's Code Unnati program, actually to complement the impact per se. So that aggregation platform of all of us, and hence the need for a segregated impact assessment from all of us, that could be the next way forward as we take it on to the thought process of executing these working on these amendments. So these are 2 points that I thought I'll propose for the future direction. Thank you very much once again. It was really enlightening discussion.
Thank you very much, Dr. Lonish, and very important suggestion to have the FAQ. I think that will be pretty welcoming if we can place all the questions offline. We can do this exercise, and ASSOCHAM can take a lead in that. And if that can be uploaded over the website of MCA, that would really be very helpful for the sector. And of course, yes, SDG 17 talks about collaboration for partnerships, and together we can do it. But yeah, before I open the floor, may I request Mr. Ravi Bhatnagar, Co-Chairperson, ASSOCHAM CSR Council and Director, External Affairs and Partnership, Racket Van Kaiser, to have his views. Ravi bhai, over to you.
Thank you, Praveen, and thank you, Sandeep, for having me here. I heard the opening address of Mr. Anil Rajput, very interesting, very insightful for the other panelists also. So I have, my views are, I think very radical views on this whole, this amendment. I will say, like, this is a great step, but to have a lot of, there are a lot of corollaries attached to that, or there are a lot of, ifs and buts which may attach to that. If a company has 100 crore budget to spend, and if there is, if there is a earmarked 5% administration cost, how we are going to manage it? It's just like you have to manage Amazon International or Tata Global, and you have the admin cost of 5%. I have not seen that happening in the business anywhere. Maybe like there are more checks and balances which are required, which company may have thought of, but it have been more participative in nature, and it really needs to be relooked into. Second, which I really want to say, is about the Section 8 companies and the companies who provide the specialist services in the development sector. Companies like, there are a lot of companies which got formed, or there are certain organizations like Aga Khan Foundation, etc., which came into the existence, some 80 years back or 70 years back, and made by the special act of in the parliament. What's going to happen to those organizations? Is there some thinking on that? Like, will work with them? Will others be able to work with them? It's a big question, because a lot of company secretaries in the companies are also telling, like, you can't work with them now. They're not just in India, but globally. And this act should not be as a hindrance to work with organizations, which, because certain organizations, maybe like here we have the ITC and many others, where you have, this purpose-led footprint across the globe, and certain partners and partnerships under the SDG 17, you would like to take it to the, various parts of the world. If there are restrictions that in India, so we're saying like a lot of practices move faster, have to move faster. So really think about which I'm very sure of. We will not be able to. Here, the accreditations, like in India, you have the world and others, but globally there are foundations, companies which are there are companies which are here also in this panel today, which maybe or next. If we really, it's very monitoring evaluation along with return on investments. So if no social return on investment, how you are going to measure, apple to carrots or apples to bananas? And we have scores in the business and the top of mind recall and many other things. So trust levels, so the trust levels in are increasing, and to be quick round with the top vendors in the CSR world, the boss. Making them more popular, these laws, and what some early impressions should be collated by ASSOCHAM so that those changes to the CSR in India. We of course very kind of resources to put behind. Examples like Shakti of HUL and each of our IITs are different kind of manpower is required to handle those kind of very complex programs. So it should not anyway this current law hampers work which is being done. We need to be very mindful of this. Thank you so much, Praveen. Over to you guys. Thank you.
Thank you, Ravi. A part of it we missed out, but again, like I could gather most of it. So I have some 12 minutes left and I can take a few questions in between. But I go back to Sri Ganeshwarji, if he has any comment over the admin restriction of 5%, and yes, of course, the Section 8 company and the rest of the not-for-profit as an implementing agency. So your quick comments on it.
See, admin cost, if you see what was there in 2014, so that is a great relief. We have said this is only at the headquarter office, your cost. This is totally different from the project cost. So from my side, this is a great relief. And I have also checked up, KPMG has done a survey. They come around 5%. So this is more than that. So what we have done, this is not part of impact assessment, is separate 5%. And this is not, if you are giving someone project, we have written that project formulation, design, everything is a part of project cost. So earlier 5% was having a lot of its way of looking at it. How you balance, that's your approach. How you balance. So you have to look at what was there, where we have arrived, and there is no final word. If there is a difficulty, it's always we can open up. We have to have the data, how it is impacting your performance.
That's pretty welcoming flexibility offered by the ministry. Thank you very much for the response, sir. Now I am opening it up for the questions and answers, and this is going to be a rapid fire round. Quick questions, quick responses from the ministry. So your question has to be very, very summarized, let it to be close-ended. And I would be expecting responses from Sri Ganeshwarji very quickly. Also, my request to you, so that we can do justice with the time. We will have it for the next 8 minutes. So I open the floor. First, I request Mr. Balaji Ganpati for your quick question.
Thanks to Mr. Ganeshwar Singh ji for the clarity. I don't have any questions. I think I completely respect the sentiment and the background with which he has shared the details. Only thing I want to mention is that the purpose pledge and what companies are doing, India certainly is taking the lead in the world in providing the right kind of framework, and with these amendments, I think the board responsibility, that's the right direction to go. So really appreciate you sharing the context and the sentiment of where this is coming from. We will certainly take this on and implement it in the best way possible.
Thank you very much, Balaji.
Thank you for your encouraging comments, because at least all of you are agreeing that this is a step in the right direction. There may be a challenges, but this is a step in the right direction. What we notified as a draft rules, we have tried to incorporate most of your concerns. So anyway, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I'm flooded with a lot of questions over the chat box also. Please look at them as well when we are placing questions. Mr. Gunjan Patel, over to you for your quick question.
So, thank you, Mr. Gyaneshwar Singh ji, for elaborating the journey and the rationale or the philosophy behind these laws. And it's always a welcome move to have regulations well articulated and documented. That gives us the way forward, how we can drive the program. Something which MCA should also look into is to create the framework wherein there has to be focus on capacity building of implementing partners. Many of us would face those challenges when we have long-term programs which requires heavy investment, and probably many of these laws and the adherence to the new rules can go haywire if implementing partner doesn't play that kind of an important role or implement in toto with the objective of the program. So probably some more guidance on that front is also essential. So thank you so much, sir, for this guidance, and we would be happy to see that it is followed. And thanks for sharing, ASSOCHAM team.
Thank you, Gunjan. Swati, I think one of your question is already been addressed, which you placed in the chat box. But if you have any other question, very quickly, 20 seconds.
Yeah, sure. Very quickly, one question, Mr. Singh. How do you see the CFO certification side? I need to be more clear on the CFO certification. How frequent would that be required if it's required for 2021? And then any prescribed format for that part? Thank you.
Say what you have asked, why we have introduced CFO. Again, the context is very important. We were saying we are not here when we meet the parliamentarian, when we get the feedback from all, there are lots of concern in the implementation of CSR ecosystem. There are good projects. At the same time, we have to accept there are bad projects. Somehow the bad projects, they get so much of attraction. So good work gets. So what we are saying that we have shifted our role to the board. So we are saying board is the final, and that's why internal control mechanism, how much you are spending, where it is going. That's why we have said CFO. So as of now, we are thinking the way CSR reports are being uploaded after your annual accounts are there. So that will give us a confidence, because we are trying to develop a new kind of a paradigm where we are saying in the CSR implementation, government should have a minimum rule. You have a role. There was a question also, and many of the suggestions requesting us to come up with more regulations, more rules. We'll say that we will be happy, because now we have shifted. It's a new shift. It's a paradigm shift. If ASSOCHAM, FICCI, if you can come with guidance note, because the more we go for a detailing, there will be more problem for the board. You will be compromising your flexibility, because no rule can be made for all kinds of situations.
Great, thank you. I'm taking some questions from the chat box, which are quite repetitive questions. Sir, question number one, will these rules be applied to Section 8, means that 5% rule, or unspent money for the year and parking that money in an escrow account, things like that? Question number two, yes, please respond.
See, we have to be clear how CSR money is being spent. We have a data, 40% it is spent directly by the company. 10% you have your own organization. The moment you have your trust society, all rules will apply. And around 50% through third parties where the NGOs come. So when you are doing directly, we are not asking you anything. When you do through all these implementing organization, so if you are doing it your own, then all those 3 years are not required. But when you are doing with third party, everything comes. So we have treated implementing organization at one place. So they have to follow certain rules. They have to also show certain kinds of a disclosure, which will help us to get confidence that things are in proper shape. There is no need for the government to monitor, no need to government to go into each and every case. And we have disbanded, we had a big setup. and that setup was CSR enforcement cell. We have disbanded with this rule. So now government will not do anything. We are hoping that good practices will emerge. Government will have a minimum rule as a last resort.
Wonderful. That's the spirit of the law. Question number 2, the unspent money of 2021 financial year. Is it also needed to be parked in the escrow account?
See, we have said only one provision will not be implemented. That is the registration of CSR. Other things, everything is enforced from this year itself.
All right. So that answers my third question also. That means the reporting will also be there for 2021 as per the new format, right, sir?
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank you. I now go to Santosh Jaraman. 30 seconds for your question. I'm left with 3 minutes only. Santosh Jaraman, if you have any question. All right. I move to Ashwini ji. Ashwini Saxena. Ashwini, you there?
Yeah, very much there. Thank you, Mr. Singh. I think a lot of questions have been answered by you. Thank you so much. The most interesting part is that, you know, there's always an open dialogue. If I may suggest, if there could be some kind of a blog or a chat box, which, you know, all of us can keep on pouring things there for you and your team to, you know, kind of, you know, look at them and, you know, as and when required. I think that could be one way of, you know, filtering out some information.
Thank you
so
Thank
much for
you.
your
We'll examine your suggestion. We'll take it seriously. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you. Next in, if you have anything to ask further.
Sir, my question is this: SBI is transferring all its CSR funds to SBI Foundation. So, this ongoing projects, all these concepts are applicable to SBI Foundation or not?
See, foundation is not a legal term for us. Either you are a trust, society, or Section 8 company. So if you are transferring that, parking of funds is not allowed. So what we are saying, these are all implementation mechanisms. That's a big departure from the earlier, and that was the concern of the parliamentarians one after another. So we are saying, wherever you are putting that money, the money has to go, either your board can decide it's an ongoing project, put it in escrow account. So the foundation has no meaning as per the new rule of CSR.
All right. I can just take one more question, Matthew or Gopal, whosoever would like to come first.
Can go, Praveen. So thank you, Mr. Singh, for accommodating the request for the demand mapping through the CSR exchange. When can we see the CSR exchange being part of the mainstream and all CSR spend being routed?
I think I need volunteer. Our framework is ready. We want to test it. Our framework is ready. Software is ready. We wanted to have three kinds of testing. One with the corporate, so that we can incorporate your feedback, then implementing agency, then with some experts. I need some more volunteer. I've asked for CII also for more volunteers, so that I can factor before your comments, so that when it is rolled out, you find it easy, you find it convenient to use it. And this will be voluntary as of now.
Perfect. So WNS as an organization can volunteer, sir, and I can work with whosoever is the implementing agency who is looking for this.
Wow. Wonderful commitments.
Thank you so much. My team will approach you.
Thank you.
Wonderful commitments. I can see right here. Matthew, if you have anything very quickly.
Yeah, this is again about the sub-grants that I was talking about. As an implementing NGO, we work with many organizations. Do we ask those NGOs also to come up with their CSR one form, or does it not apply to them? This is
no. For us, the company is giving to X, we end up at X. Beyond that, it's your call. We want to make our life simple.
Thank you so much.
We are not concerned about the whole chain of the NGOs, those are involved, so you have to take care of all those things.
Well, it's a natural progression, and we can see a lot of developments happening in this. I'm really excited about knowing about this Csr Exchange Portal, and I would also like to volunteer for it, Sri Ganeshwar ji. At the same time, when we started the deliberation today, there were quotes, and I guess that's been decoded now. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for your kind participation for the day. I would like to now request Mr. Anil Rajput in a very quick time to kindly offer the vote of thanks.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you, Ganesh Kumarji. It is always pleasure to meet you and have your very enlightening view and interact with you. I'm sure a lot of doubts have been cleared for all those people who had come here. And going forward, also, I think when you make a change, there are always some issues and concerns industry will have. And I think we'll have to sit together and seek your counsel as to how to address those. As these rules have come in the fag end of the year, and many things may have been in progress, and many members will come forward to you and share their concerns, and I'm sure that with you at the helm of affairs, we will be able to find solutions to that. From ASSOCHAM, we will come back to you as to who will engage with you going forward and volunteer their association so that industry's comprehensive views can be tabled with you. I have also noted down some of the suggestions that you've given from the association side. We will revert to you on all of those. And I'm very happy to learn that you've agreed to have FAQ, which will clarify a lot of doubts that industry has at the moment. As you yourself have mentioned that it is a paradigm shift. And whenever there is a paradigm shift, it takes a little time to stabilize. So going forward, I think next couple of months, we will all have to work together so that we can really achieve the objective which the government has set out going forward. So thank you once again and sharing and giving your valuable inputs to us. And we really appreciate your time and I'm sure we will continue to remain engaged with you for some more time. I also want to thank all my panelists who have contributed immensely and kept this whole session very engaging. And if there are any further queries that are there, which you think that you've not been able to ask, or there are some more penetrative questions, please send them to us, and we will take up all those with the ministry in the months to come. I also want to thank ASSOCHAM team for organizing this event very well. And behind the scene, they keep working very hard to fructify all the industry concerns going forward. Thank you very much, everybody, for sharing all your thoughts and comments. Many thanks.
Thank
you, Anil Rajput, sir.
Thank you for organizing. Thank you so much.
All right, so ladies and gentlemen, with this, we are wrapping it up for the day. Let us make the world a better place to live. With this narration, we would like to thank all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.